Well, hello and welcome to the first ever attempt at a PRUK podcast. So that's the Pharmacy Research UK podcast, or PRUK Pod, as I think all the cool kids are calling it. So the idea is this is a new thing we're trialing at PRUK, just to provide a way of getting information out to people, hopefully in a slightly different format, hearing a bit about what we're doing, what we've got coming up, things that we've done already, and maybe a little bit about uh, interesting things that people who apply to us or want to know more about what we do might find interesting about, how our grant rounds work, how to apply the things that people look for when when a grant is being assessed, those sorts of things. I should probably start by introducing ourselves. So I'm Guy Parker, so I'm the Chief Executive of Pharmacy Research UK, and co-host of this podcast. And my colleague over there is Desh. Do you want to introduce yourself, Desh?
Sure, yeah, I'm Desh. I'm the research manager for Pharmacy Research UK. I'm excited to be in this first PRK podcast.
Yeah. So the format for today is that, yes, Desh is both co-host and guest for today. So the idea is that hopefully Desh will be giving a bit of an insight into what his role is, how it works, and if someone is looking to apply for a grant from PRUK, what sort of things you'll be looking for, and how that process would actually go from kind of receiving an application or an interest in applying to an award actually being made. It might be useful maybe just to start with a little bit of background about who we are. So my background is in working for charities primarily. So I've worked for quite a few different charities over the years. Most recently was a chief executive of a small health-related charity, now chief executive of Pharmacy Research UK. It's a great little organisation. Obviously, we essentially research funder, provide grant funding for pharmacy professionals, looking at the practice and activity of pharmacy, trying to improve the health of the nation. So that's kind of my background. I've been at PRUK now for about 5 years, I think. Desh, how about you?
So my background is I originally wanted to become a lecturer and a researcher myself. And so I kind of got my foot in the door and got a job as an assistant program manager, for the NIHR. I thought that's a good way to kind of get my foot in the door and enter the world of academia. But I realized just how much I enjoy the management side of things. And on the researcher side, it didn't look too much fun. It's so competitive, all the applications you have to fill. So I kind of stayed in that role. So I worked in the NIHR for about 3-4 years in the Researcher Patient Benefit Program. And then I moved to PRUK. I've been here coming up to 8 years now. So a long time, but very happy to be here. I love working for a small organization like PRUK. And my role is very much focused on the day-to-day operations of PRUK when it comes to contacting applicants, liaising with them and the researchers we funded, managing the grant calls, which I'm sure we'll go into in a bit later. But yeah, kind of making sure that the funding processes we have all operate fairly smoothly and help to manage kind of the day-to-day activities that PRUK do.
Yeah, and I guess make sure that everything is kind of fair and even and academically robust, I guess. We're a member as an organisation of the Association of Medical Research Charities, and that means we adhere to a fairly kind of strict set of guidelines as to how you can manage calls, and yes, making sure they're open, fair competition, which I think is important for the area of work that we're in. To make sure that, yes, people can trust it's gone through a really solid, robust process before anything is actually awarded. I suppose one useful thing maybe just to kick off with might be a little update on kind of what's happening with the organisation at the moment, what we're up to. I might kick off just with a little update on something to look forward to potentially for this year. We're talking at the moment we always try and set up partnerships wherever we can, because we're a small organisation, and we want to try and maximise the amount that we can actually fund. And to do that, having a partnership is a really good way. It means, we have two pots of money to call on and commit to something, and it hopefully brings more people into the world of pharmacy research. I think we're all very conscious that we need to get more pharmacy professionals involved in research and feeling that research is an option for them. And if we can bring more organizations on board as we try and do that, it hopefully just widens that reach. So we're in discussions at the moment with Kidney Research UK as one organisation that we're hoping to launch a funding call with for this year. That'd be really exciting if we can. I think it would be similar. We've had partnerships over the years with the likes of Diabetes UK, Wellbeing of Women, the British Oncology Pharmacy Association, College of Mental Health Pharmacy, lots of different organisations. But yes, one to look out for if you're a researcher working in the area is one around kidney health and the effect of and the role of pharmacists in and pharmacy professionals in managing that process, looking at the effect on kidney health of many different medications. So that's one to look out for. Desh, any updates or thoughts from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely things to look forward to. I guess everyone kind of wants to know, especially the applicants for this year's round, what's going on with our current funding round. So yeah, we launched back, I think, just before Christmas, the 2024 funding round, and that includes, for the first time ever in our history, funding fully funded PhD studentships. We've received 11 applications to that scheme. So it's quite a good number, especially for our first year. And we also had our partnership with British Oncology Pharmacy Association and are also offering our training bursaries. So at the moment, the panel are currently reviewing those applications, and we've sent some of the applications out for peer review as well, those that have been kind of shortlisted for the PhDs to be peer reviewed externally. So that's currently under process. And for any peer reviewers watching this, thank you so much. Honestly, it really forms the backbone of the whole robust funding research assessment process is external peer review, which our panel heavily rely on to make decisions and make sure that the applications are kind of assessed robustly and as fairly as possible. So it really is an important process which is currently undergoing. So once that's kind of hopefully concludes by the end of this month, then the next step will be to invite those applications that have been peer reviewed to the main June panel meeting. So that will be the next step, and I'm sure we'll have another podcast out by then, so I'll be able to provide a further update next time. But that's where we are at the moment, which is it's very exciting, especially given that the PhD scheme is very new to us, and we're also very open to feedback about how we can not only make the scheme more accessible for pharmacy professionals, but more in out helping the applicants to really have what they need to put together a strong proposal. We know that this is something that we've heard time and again. It's certainly in the back of our minds to try and address for even the next podcast.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And yeah, no, it is really, really exciting to see that coming to fruition. And it is, I guess, it's one of the advantages of being a small organization. I guess the downside is we don't quite have the resources that some big organizations do. The plus side is we can be quite responsive to things. So we can launch a PhD studentship, and we can learn from what works and what doesn't work, and then we can adjust it for the next time around in a way that maybe some of larger organizations, it's a bit harder to kind of change and adapt and suddenly just offer something a bit different. For us, that's something we're always keen to get that feedback and understand what works for people, what doesn't, what do people actually need at the moment. Are there gaps in funding that we can address? So always good to hear that sort of feedback. But yeah, really exciting. Well, I look forward to the next update on it. So I guess if we go into kind of the main stuff for today, and it's really a chance, Desh, for you to talk about that process of applying for a grant, the sort of things that's useful for people to know and just to understand the kind of how that process works. I guess the first thing maybe is sort of, yeah, what is the process for someone who's looking to get a grant from PRUK or is interested in finding out about how to get funding for their research? You know, how do they start that process, and then how does it go from there?
Sure, sure. So essentially, for any funding scheme, whether it's through PRUK or another funder, there are certain key components that make up a funding scheme. Each of the funding schemes will look different. There might be extra stages or extra assessment rounds or things of this nature, but it fundamentally boils down to a few key points. So first of all, you'll usually start with a kind of administrative and scoping review. So I'm talking now more about the assessment of the applications, but you have an assessment, a scoping review, which is essentially the applications come in and the team at the funding team, they'll look through the applications to make sure, okay, is this in scope of what we would fund? Is the application complete? Things like kind of basic checks. Once it passes that initial check, then the next step is usually to send that application out to the representative panel member to be assigned to do an initial review on it. So that means that it would look to review the relevance of the research question, the methodology, the strength of the supervisory team, a bit about the applicant, what their future research aspirations are. So it'll be doing a kind of more thorough assessment of each of those aspects of the application. And usually what we ask for is a score. So we have a scoring criteria, which was from 1 to 6. And then they give that score, and that score is the indication as to whether that application should be considered further or whether it should be rejected. As you said, we're quite a small charity and we do want to be as generous as we can, especially given that we are targeting very early career and usually pharmacy professionals at the beginning of their research career. So therefore, we do try to give as much feedback as we possibly can. And also, you know, in cases, give the benefit of the doubt. If we feel that there's a proposal that has potential, we do try where we can to shortlist it for further scrutiny and further discussion. But essentially, we usually assign 2 members of our scientific advisory panel and then 2 of our patient members to each application, and then give the average of each of those scores. And that then helps us to determine whether it's scored highly enough to be considered and shortlisted for the next round, or if it should be rejected. If it is shortlisted, then that usually involves now sending it out externally out of PRUK for external peer reviewers. So reviewers who are familiar with the research methodology or the content of the subject area, clinicians, and then getting their input. And then once we get their input, it is then brought into the main panel meeting that we hold, where each of the assigned reviewers will give a kind of short presentation as to what their assessment is of that application. So they'll each have a chance to share that with the entire panel. And then they also summarize the peer reviewer comments, at which point a discussion is normally had with everyone as to whether that proposal should be seriously considered for funding. Once that process takes place for each of the applications being assessed, at the end of the meeting, we usually have a spreadsheet which ranks, kind of summarizes what the final score is on that application. And then we can see which of the applications are looking the strongest that we're likely to fund and which ones fall below the funding threshold. And we factor in peer reviewer comments, we factor in our budget. So there's a lot of things that go into that process. However, as you said, we are a member of the AMRC, and as such, we make sure that we adhere to their quite strict principles of assessment to make it not just robust, but also fair. That's what's key for us. So that's a kind of summary of the assessment process. In terms of going about applying, there are key things that I would like to share now, if I may, as to what applicants need to think about. But we will be deep diving into this, hopefully in the next podcast, with hopefully be inviting the chair of our panel to talk about that in some greater depth. But essentially, you need to know who your supervisors are. So really be clear as to who could potentially supervise your work. It has to be someone who is quite experienced in terms of research in that particular area or the methodology. You can have more than one supervisor to do that. So really make sure you have meetings with them to discuss what your research idea is. Is it addressing a gap in the literature? Is it something that you're just duplicating something that already exists? Or is there a real need for that research? And if there's a need, having a supervisor on board from the very early stages can help you, because not only will they supervise you and support you in developing the application, they can also guide you into what other things you need to think about. And one of the other things is patient and public involvement. We do have representatives that sit on our panel who are patient representatives. So they are specifically there to look at the PPI. So how strong is the patient involvement? Are the patients involved in the research? Is there a burden on them? Are they being compensated fairly? Are there any particular patient groups that were omitted from the plan? So all of these things are really crucial to consider. And I know in the next podcast, hopefully, we're going to be talking about the kind of common pitfalls where applications tend to fail. So I don't want to go into that too much detail now, but essentially, it is knowing really who do I speak to. I can't go. I'm sure you come across this. The amount of pharmacists and other professionals who have come to us saying, "I've got this great idea, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get this started." It is just speaking to the right people and knowing who to turn to. Obviously, knowing where to get the funding from is a huge barrier. And this is, I think, why PRUK is so unique, because there's no other funder I'm aware of that offers funding like we do at the very beginning stages of a pharmacy professional's research career. So we are usually, I think, the first port of call for development grants, training bursaries, but really the common pitfalls that our panel feedback is this application has simply not been developed sufficiently enough. Because at the end of the day, we do want to fund, reliable, robust proposals. And knowing that an applicant can get support by just reaching out to supervisors early. If you're based in England, reaching out to the Research Study Support Service in the NIHR. So there are things that are available to you and resources that are available that will help you to build an application. But like I said, I'm sure we're going to speak with Adam as the chair of the SAP to really deep dive from a scientific and researcher's perspective on what applicants need to really consider when developing a proposal.
Yeah, and I mean, I think well, hopefully that's a good thing to hook people in for the next edition of the podcast, whenever that will come out. We're hoping to do them quite regularly. So sort of one a month, that sort of time.
Sure.
So hopefully not before too long. And yeah, no, it's incredibly helpful to kind of hear that process from kind of beginning to end. And I guess it's worth saying that yes, we can help with some of that as well. It's fine for applicants to kind of contact us and say, I've got this idea, what do I do with it? And we won't always be able to kind of direct you exactly to who you need, but we can advise. And we offer schemes like mentoring, where again we can kind of potentially connect you in with a more experienced researcher who might be able to direct you, and we can direct you to some of the resources that are out there. So the Royal Pharmaceutical Society have a few different resources that people can access that will help just sort of, again, guide you through some of the early stages. The RPS research team as well sometimes can support people to actually apply for a grant from us or from someone else. Yeah, Desh, you mentioned the NIHR as well. There are places where you can go, but I guess sometimes if you are really just sort of right at the start of this journey, yeah, even knowing where those resources who can help start you on that journey, you don't
Yeah.
even know where they are. So yeah, we certainly can help just sort of steer people in the right direction. And yeah, it's never something I think that people need to be worried about. I remember, I mean, it's having a very early discussion in my career where I was told definitely that there's no such thing as a silly question, and it's absolutely true that if there's something you don't know, there's chances are lots of people also don't know it, and it's absolutely right to ask and try and find out the answer. In other words, if someone comes to us and sort of says, I've got this idea, but I don't really know how to progress it, that's not going to impact on your kind of future assessment. We're not going to go, oh, that's the person who didn't really know what they were doing. It's actually just finding out, it's showing to us that that person is interested, engaged, wants to find out more, wants to do it right and put in a strong application.
It's a very good point you make, Guy, and it reminds me that, if there is anyone watching this who has an idea of a proposal and doesn't know where to start, or even has developed a kind of draft proposal and wants feedback, please do get in touch. The reason I say that is because we can ask members of our panel who are very happy to help out on these kind of requests and again give feedback. So we'd be very happy to pass that on to members of our panel for kind of more expert feedback on any aspect, or at least a signpost to you where you might be able to find support. We're not always successful all the time because it depends on where you're based and what support you're after. You mentioned the mentoring scheme. Shout out to any potential mentors who might be willing to help. We have a waiting list of mentees at the moment, so we really do welcome experienced researchers or any support you can offer. Please do sign up to us. But yeah, that's exactly it. It is understanding, knowing that certainly from my experience as well, that there is no silly question. Another thing to add, and this is coming from someone who's worked in IHR before, there is a reputation of funders to be very much, we just fund and that's it. So you have to apply to us. But my experience of being with PRUK is I think we're a bit more because we can afford to be, we are very open. So if you asked a question about a proposal, we would never say that's not in our remit. We would want to help you as much as possible. So please do get in touch if you're unsure where to go, and we will do our very best to try and signpost you to the place or the people you need to speak to go forward with that.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And I guess, yes, and it set us up very nicely for the next in the series of podcasts that, yeah, hopefully we'll start looking a bit more about, yeah, exactly that, how what are the things that our panel, who are, obviously lots of experienced experts, leading kind of researchers in their field, what are they actually looking for? And yeah, and I know you've touched on a few of the things. I mean, I think every time we talk to the panel, it is often about things like ensuring that they know it's deliverable. I think there can be a tendency to sort of, to want to put in as much as possible and feel that if you're packing it full of stuff that, that's going to be more appealing. Often that's not the case if the panel look at it and they're very, very experienced and knowledgeable and go, it's not possible to do all of this, all these different elements that have been built in. That is the sort of thing that will end up, I guess, kind of scoring an application down if it's too packed with things. It has to be deliverable, achievable, and you want a really strong small project rather than a project that is sort of lots of different bits all tagged together that may or may not actually be deliverable. But we can get into all of that with with Professor Adam Todd, who's the chair of our scientific advisory panel, potentially in the next podcast. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, Desh. It's sort of helpful for me always just kind of listening to you talk through that process and understand kind of what happens when, because I guess it's that strange thing, isn't it? You click send on an application form and who knows where it goes after that.
Yes.
Well, that's where it goes if it comes into us. And I imagine most funders are pretty similar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. And what's really nice about the funding we offer is that we have had cases where the researchers that we funded have been able to go and get NIHR funding and get grant level funding. So it's really, this is the whole purpose of our funding, is to support pharmacy professionals now to really go to get onward funding. And this is what our panel look for as well.
Absolutely, and I guess that's one other thing just to mention now as well is that we've used the phrase pharmacy professionals throughout, and that we have over the years for Pharmacy Research UK, from the way we were originally set up, we had some pots of our funding that were specifically earmarked for pharmacists and pharmacists only. There were kind of restrictions around some of those grants. We have fairly recently, so for the first time in our last funding call, fully opened up to all pharmacy professionals. So we have over the years had quite a lot of pharmacy technicians come to us and sort of say, well, can I apply for the grants? And we've had to sort of say, well, maybe, maybe not. It depends which one. And, I think it's really, really important that they are now open to pharmacy professionals across the UK, which is, something we're really, really pleased and excited about. So hopefully we continue to get a big range of people applying at various stages of their research journey for the different awards that we offer, whether that's in partnership or some of the just the kind of the developmental awards that we offer directly ourselves.
Yeah, exactly right. And I should also mention, as part of my role, and again for anyone watching who's interested, I'm very happy to offer presentations online remotely about who we are, what support we can offer. I have done that in the past with different universities and different kind of pharmacy groups that have met. I'll be very happy to extend that invitation. And so if you want or interested, please get in touch with us. And I'm sure I'll be very happy to offer kind of more detail about the funding we offer, when our next call might be, and general updates if anyone would find that helpful. I think for us as a fund, and I'm sure maybe hopefully you'll agree, Guy, it really is about spreading the message that we are here. We are offering funding, because I do come across professionals who still have not heard of us, which is not perhaps all surprising, because we are a small organisation, but we do fund across the UK, and so I think it's good for us to be able to spread that message to as many people as we can. Go and spread the word through networks and groups that there is funding available for professionals who are early or at the beginning of their research career.
Yeah, no, absolutely, really, really good point, Desh, and I think, given that the purpose of doing the podcast was again just trying a different way of getting that message out there and making sure that people know that they can apply to us and know that we're here. Anything we can do to spread that message, I think would be really helpful. And anyone listening in who wants to hear more about what we do or just pass that message on, that's always really helpful, I think, because there's a lot of people who might have that sort of inkling of an idea and just not know where to go with it. I suppose it's all well and good us saying, well, ask us, but if they don't know we're there either, then that's another challenge. So anything we can do to hopefully get that message out there, I think is really helpful. Well, thanks, Desh. That's really, really informative. Hopefully, I don't think we're expecting this to be the UK's #1 podcast just yet, but I'm sure. Give it time. Give it time.
Give it time. Yeah.
I suspect we may be a slightly more niche audience, but it's a really nice thing to do, and hopefully just a different way of people finding out about us and finding out about what we've got going on. If you are interested, hopefully, then keep an eye on our website. We'll have a look, depending on how it all works, as to whether we can kind of host this in other places as well, to make it easier again for people to find potentially. But we'll see how that goes as we progress. But in the meantime, it's been really interesting and great to do. So thanks to Desh.
No, well, thank you, Guy. And just to stay tuned. The next podcast, we will be certainly planning to kind of do a deep dive into the common pitfalls of applications, which I know from feedback a lot of people are interested in. And so hopefully we can get someone who has experience talking about that. But no, it's been fun. It's been fun. Always fun to delve into the unknown. You never know how these things work out. But no, it was great. And I look forward to the next one.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the very first PRUK Pod Does that sound rude? I don't know.
It
It makes
sounds rude, but it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sounds like medication, which I suppose is
Yeah,
appropriate. Have you gone to collect your PRUK pod yet?
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, brilliant. Well, thanks very much, and yeah, we'll be back soon with episode 2. So thanks very much, and yeah, see you all soon.
Thank you. See you then.
Bye bye.